Hobgoblins and witches and things that go bump in the night.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Evil Dread. I'm Wyeth.
And I'm Lynn, and this week we are tackling dark comedies.
Not just, very specific dark comedies.
Yes.
The horrors of high school.
Oh, that's true. I didn't even realize there was a theme. These are just two of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
But, so these technically aren't horror movies in the strictest sense of the word.
High school had quite a bit of horror built into it.
Buffy got a lot of traction off that idea.
Mm-hmm.
But these are super dark comedies with a lot of murder.
So much murder.
I think it's a fine line. They could be comedy thrillers, maybe, something like that. But yeah, what did we watch this week, Wyatt?
We watched Heathers and Point Blank.
Grosse Point Blank.
I knew there were three words that I was not sure about the order.
Grosse Point Blank.
Grosse Point Blank.
Which is an incredible title because he's from Grosse Point. His last name is Blank, and you kill someone with point blank range. So it is a triple meaning. The title speaks to how extremely well written that movie is. Okay, so Wyatt watched Heathers by himself because it's on Netflix, and we just got done watching Grosse Point Blank because I have the DVD.
I watched Heathers at 4 a.m. because I have insomnia.
Choice. So that's a real choice.
It was.
And I admire it.
It was an experience.
Is that why you look like your dark circles are popping off today?
Yes, I look. My Tim Burton brand is really
okay, well,
today.
You arrived at my door 20 minutes after I awoke, so...
And I look worse than you, yes.
No! Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, we're both looking super attractive while we record this, so just imagine that.
Well, I think we should open on Heathers because...
I agree, because we haven't talked about it.
Because you haven't said anything except just watch it. And I went into it thinking like, oh, it's going to build up to like a school shooting.
You would think so.
That's what I thought.
I think if it was post-Columbine, one, this movie wouldn't have gotten made, and two, it would have leaned heavily into the school shooter.
Well, we are post-Columbine. We're post-everything now.
We're post-Sandy Hook.
And it's getting a remake.
We can speak about that.
We'll get into that.
We talked about it a little bit last week, I think, on a tangent. We went on a lot of tangents last week, but yeah, we can talk about it. So, Wyatt, as someone who had never seen Heathers until, let's say, I don't know, 8 hours ago, something like that, I want you to give the plot synopsis because my history with this movie is a complex and long one. I found it in like the Walmart $5 DVD section in 8th grade, like right before going into high school, and I watched it maybe 4 times in like 2 days, like right after I got it. And then I would watch it like maybe every week or so for a long time. So
this movie is like a feel-bad John Hughes movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It follows Veronica, played by Winona Ryder, who is a delight.
I'm so glad you say that.
I loved her so much.
Good.
Her story arc is so good.
Yes, this is insane. Wyeth never likes things that I love, so I'm like really hyped right now.
Wait, we're not done.
I know, but at least you like Winona.
And she falls for the school bad boy, played fantastically by Christian Slater.
What's his name?
James Dean.
Well, JD. So it's supposedly... I listened to the commentary on this movie like maybe 10 times.
That's how you know if you truly love a movie. You commit to the commentary.
Yeah, definitely. But it's supposed to stand for both James Dean and juvenile delinquent.
Oh.
But his name is Jason Dean, but he goes by JD.
And together they cut a bloody swath through the school.
Yeah.
They start staging suicides.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my problems with the movies lie.
See,
it is so tonally inconsistent.
Definitely. It's one of those movies where it's like, this has something to say, but I'm not sure what.
It has something to say, and it's doing it poorly.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that was, from the people I've like heard watch this movie, or I've like asked to watch this movie, the suicide aspect is really like surprising to a lot of people, I think, because mostly you're like, oh, they're just like committing murders.
Yeah.
And it's fun and fine. But then it kind of turns into
it's like this off-key commentary.
Yeah, like a social commentary about, I guess in 1988, like there was a rash of teen suicides. Yeah. I don't know. Like I guess it's responding to something. But yeah, let's go through like
you do the plot,
okay.
because my insomnia brain is going to miss a lot of things.
That's fine.
I'll jump in.
So it begins with a dream sequence of these 3 girls. They're all named Heather. 2 are blonde, Heather McNamara and Heather Chandler. Blonde. Heather Duke is a redhead, played by Shannon Doherty. And they are playing croquet, and they are all color-coded. So Heather Chandler is red, and she's always red, and that's like the power color, because she's the leader. Mm-hmm. And then Heather McNamara is yellow, and Heather Duke is green. And Veronica, is blue. And it starts with a dream sequence where they're all playing croquet and they hit the ball, and Winona's head is sticking out of the turf, like she's like buried up to her neck, and they like hit her in the head with a ball, and she's like, "Dear diary." And so it starts like
she writes in her diary so dramatically.
She uses a monocle.
It's amazing. It's
perfect. So she is kind of the black sheep of like the popular clique. Mm-hmm. So they're all named Heather except her. Her name's Veronica Sawyer. And she is not really sold on all like the terrible shit they do. Yeah. It starts with a really long sequence in the cafeteria, like over lunch, and it kind of like introduces you to all the different cliques and all that. So there's like, but everyone kind of is terrified of the Heathers, but also like want them to like them. Like the nerds are like, Heather C just looked at me. So, but there's a girl named Martha Dunstock, who they call Martha Dump Truck because she's very fat. So she's overweight. And they do this thing where Veronica, a recurring plot point is Veronica can mimic people's handwriting. Mm-hmm. Which at another point in the movie just stops mattering completely. But, so she mimics the handwriting of one of, like, the big football players, Kurt and Ram. I can't remember if it was Kurt or Ram, because they're interchangeable.
Pretty much.
But, she forges a hot and horny love letter that'll give her shower nozzle masturbation material for weeks.
The dialogue in this movie was swung, well, I won't even say swung, because that implies there was, like, a middle. But it was either very funny or very grating. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, it definitely has it goes for style over substance. How's that?
It swings sort of fences.
Yes, for sure. So they say stuff like that.
What's your damage, Heather?
That's amazing, Wyatt.
That's a good one.
Yes, I'm glad you liked it.
We'll get to my favorite line later.
Oh, good. I can't wait. So they forge a note from Kurt that says he's like loves Martha. So Martha gets all excited. She shows him the note and he like laughs in her face. It's really horrible. Mm-hmm. So they're pulling all this bullshit like all through lunch, just like kind of sowing seeds of chaos. They are dark agents of chaos in the school, basically. All the while, there's kind of a new guy who's sitting by himself, who's watching all this go down and making very animated facial expressions. Like, when they do that to Martha Dump Truck, he's like, and just like touches his forehead. He is
the blinking white guy gif.
He is, yeah, exactly. And Veronica's like, who's this guy? And Heather McNamara,
brooding in the corner with an earring.
Yes, Heather McNamara is like, that's Jason Dean. He's in my American government class. He's new. So she goes over and talks to JD. They have a little thing. He's like, are you a Heather? And she's like, no, I'm a Veronica.
He's like, greetings and salutations.
Oh my god. This is like peak Christian Slater doing his Jack Nicholson impression.
Holy shit, yes.
Yeah. And like, on the commentary, they were like, I asked him if he's like doing that on purpose, and I think that's just how he talks.
It was. I really loved his character until just a light switch was turned off halfway through the movie.
Yeah, there's a big turn that happens.
Yeah.
So Veronica and JD are flirting, all that stuff. Then a truly amazing thing. This is like when you realize the movie is not fucking around.
Nope.
When
Wait, you didn't realize it when "fuck me gently with the chainsaw"?
that could just be in a really that could be in an edgy teen movie. But when Kurt and Ram were like, "Who's that guy Veronica's talking to? God, we're seniors. We should kick his ass."
Yep.
And they go up to him, and they're like, "Hey, Dick, is that your boyfriend's jacket? I thought this cafeteria had no fags allowed policy." There's the homophobia in this movie is, but it was written by a gay guy to as a satire. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, I feel a little
good.
Better.
And JD is like, seems like they have an open door policy for assholes, though. And he's like, what did you say? And he's like, I'll repeat my question. And he pulls out the biggest gun you've ever seen and just shoots at the camera twice. I want to hear your reaction to that scene.
Not expecting it.
Yeah, no.
It went from 0 to 100 so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And the camera,
cuts
to another scene.
Yeah.
And it's explained in the scene it was blanks.
Yeah, they were like, he should at least get expelled. And she's like, it was just blanks. The only thing you really ruined was 2 pairs of pants and all that.
Watching this movie post...
Oh, honey.
Everything made me feel kind of icky.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
Which is another reason I'm against a Heathers remake, in this moment. Because it's just... It wasn't... I wouldn't call it, predictable of, It didn't, predict things that would happen, I don't think. But it's very, looking back, it's that's a little too close for comfort, you know?
Yeah.
But, so yeah, Heather... Chandler, who is the biggest bitch in the world. She's the true sociopath of all of them.
She's evil.
Because Heather McNamara, she's kind of just a follower, and Heather Duke is, basically just bullied in the group or whatever. But so her and Veronica go to a Remington College party.
Which those men were disgusting.
Oh yeah, they were terrible. They stop at the Snappy Snack Shack before to get some corn nuts.
Because that's the thing the kids are into.
Regular or BQ? BQ! But I'm sorry. I'm going to try not to recite this entire movie. Veronica runs into JD. They do some heavy flirting.
I'm here to just get my sanity sandwich.
What?
He's...
My sanity sandwich.
He's talking about how the snacks keep his sanity.
Yes, because he moves around a lot. His dad is a construction, the head of a construction company. There's a thing that happened with his mom that will be explained later. So they do some heavy flirting, and she says... It is
some great flirting.
Oh, their sexual tension and chemistry in this movie...
For the first half, yeah.
Is off the chain, okay?
I agree.
Wild.
They were so much fun to watch together when they were tag teaming in dialogue.
Yes. Oh my god, I love it so much. And it's truly the ground zero of my bisexuality.
A true intersection.
Just right in the middle. Just we got Christian, we got Winona together.
They both end up bloody and smoking. And I think you almost caved in your chest. You clutched it so hard.
I have a very specific type, and they are both it.
Battered, bloody, and smoking.
Yeah, and she's the female version of it, he's the male version of it. So this movie is truly perfect in that way. She has the really amazing line, they're not so much my friends as we work together and our job is being popular and shit. So she's really just dissatisfied. So what you get tell me what happens at the college party.
So she goes to the college party and it's awful. The guys are pushy, pressuring her to have sex. Yeah.
Can we talk about an amazing line, which was like, ugh, I love talking to high school girls because no one, you with college girls, you always have to ask what's your major. And then 2 seconds later, he's like, so when you go to university, like, what do you think you'll be studying?
Yep. At one point, a trash fire starts, and the movie seems like it was going to be a big deal, but it wasn't.
No. She engages in some, like, light self-harm, which is really interesting to me.
And uncomfortable.
Because I don't know. I feel like that's something that happens with teen girls that, like, doesn't get talked about very much. I don't know about 1987, but it just shows, like, she's very unhappy and just doesn't really know.
Like, later in the movie, she sticks a cigarette lighter onto her palm, and Christian Slater lights a cigarette from the burn mark. And
you know how many times I watched that scene?
I had the opposite reaction.
Oh my god. Okay, can we get there when we get there?
We'll get there when we get there. So Winona throws up at the party, and
she gets too drunk. She drank too much.
Lead Heather loses it.
She kind of like throws up on her. Okay, like let's just say the reactions in this movie to things are very kind of out of nowhere.
Everything in this movie is out of nowhere.
So, like, Veronica vomits on Heather C's shoes, but she also, like, I guess she feels embarrassed. Like, she took her to this college party and she couldn't handle her shit or whatever. Which leads to truly legendary, iconic confrontation in an alleyway.
Yes.
Would you like to recreate it?
No.
Okay. Isn't it like, you no good slut, you goddamn bitch. And then she's like, I've been paid with puke. And Veronica says, lick it up, baby, lick it up.
Yeah.
True. This is just...
So then, after the party, she goes...
a landmark in my life.
She goes back to her house, and...
guess who's there?
JD as Romeo climbs up to the window.
Okay, like, in the summary, they described it as, like, Pee-wee's Playhouse, like, hey, what's up?
Oh, it is!
It's the local neighborhood psychopath. What's up? Hi, I'm here.
And they have a late night game of strip croquet.
It's truly, like, I definitely had, like, a fantasy of, like, a boy coming to my window at night or something.
croquet.
No.
Okay.
But...
Listen, I won't judge if you're into croquet. No one here will judge.
But but we lived in the middle of the woods, so if anyone was like actually outside my window, it would have been terrifying. Yeah, exactly. But I always wanted to live in like suburbia where like I had a neighbor or something, and like I would fall in love with the boy next door or whatever.
I had that too, but with like the girl next door, but that never happens.
I guess
I'm sorry to burst your suburban dream.
Well, I mean, American Beauty lied to me about many things. So.
I would hope no one uses American Beauty as a basis for reality.
Honey.
I know how you built, what pop cultural monuments you have in your childhood.
I do, yeah. So her and JD get together. It's pretty great. So they get up the next morning, and she's like, oh, Heather's gonna assassinate me at school on Monday, like socially.
Yeah.
Because that could actually happen in this movie, so I should clarify. She's like, okay. So JD's like, all right. I mean, she was a real bitch.
Let's make her drink bleach.
Well, they kind of... It's an interesting, like, journey to that. I think she was kind... Let's just explain how it happened. So they go over to her house. She's, like, hungover. And they're kind of wanting to get revenge on her for being such a bitch, but they're also kind of like, hey, can we forget about this?
Such a bad job of explaining where everyone is in this movie. Because I thought they were all in the same house on multiple instances.
Really?
Yes. Because they were first, because JD comes up to Winona's room, and then they go into the yard, and then the camera cuts to them like walking into a kitchen, and they never explained that they went over to someone's house.
Oh, I think they mentioned it in dialogue, but yeah, I mean, it's a super cheap movie.
Okay.
A lot of sets are reused.
Mm-hmm.
The Heather Chandler's kitchen, when it's all red, is actually the kitchen in the dream sequence.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean...
That's why it was so confusing.
they go over there, and Veronica's like, let's mix her up some really nasty hangover cure. And she's like, let's put some soup and like some milk or something, like, and all this. And JD's like, why don't we just use this Drano? And she's like, don't be an idiot, like, don't be an asshole. And he's like, okay, but he puts it in a cup and she puts hers in a cup, and they both have lids. And did you think that she 100% knew before it happened? Because she grabs a cup that has a lid on it. He looks in the other cup, and it's the, like, milk and orange juice or whatever. And he's like, hey, Veronica. And she's like, what? And he's like, never mind, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
I don't know.
Okay.
Again, I watched this in a weird space.
Okay, so I think she was kind of...
naive.
Yes. I mean, she was stupid.
The first 2 rounds, she was very naive.
I think she wanted to believe him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the first one was kind of purely a mix-up that he let happen. Okay? So they go in there, they're like, we have a hangover cue for you. And she's like, you really expect me to drink this shit? And she's like, what are you, a chicken? It's really stupid. So Heather C. drinks the Drano and dies.
Yes. And so to cover it up, they play it up as a suicide, leave a very well-written suicide note, and the school
loses its mind.
What a poor, tortured soul Heather was. If only we had known the real Heather.
There's a line later in the movie where it's like, suicide gave Heather depth, Kurt brains, like Ram a heart. Like,
yeah.
So it kind of backfired. So she's more popular than ever now.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like...
they martyred her.
Yeah, for sure. And so that kind of leaves the Heathers in disarray, leading Heather Duke to come in. And she's like, I'm the head Heather now.
Yep, the first head is off the Hydra.
Mm-hmm. What is it? I cut off Heather Chandler's head, and Heather Duke's head sprouted back in its place like some mythological creature my 8th grade boyfriend would know about.
Which, that 8th grade boyfriend sounds
It was
fun.
you.
Yeah. I was down to talk about some mythological beasts.
Yes. Okay, so what happens next? Heather dies.
Heather's dead. The school mourns.
Mm-hmm. They go to the funeral.
The funeral was great.
Yes. At the funeral, yes. What were you going to say?
Okay, the pastor. Is that the guy from Beetlejuice?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Glenn Shaddix.
Yep.
R.I.P. I don't know how to do that.
Close
Spectacles,
enough.
testicles, wallet, and watch.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, there's an amazing bit player who's the pastor who like gives these sermons that are insane.
Trying to put slang and Jesus together for the kids.
Yes, exactly.
Hello, fellow children.
I know we're too distracted by the MTV video games. Well, I know a righteous dude.
I lost it at that.
Jesus Christ. So at the funeral, Heather McNamara, who is kind of the dumb, nice one, is like, Kurt wants me to go on a double date, and he only said he'll go if you go with Ram. And she's like, no, I'm with JD right now. And she's like, please, come on, do me a favor. So that evening, Veronica goes out on a double date with Kurt and Ram and Heather. And she goes, just promise me that they won't get drunk and go cow tipping. Which is exactly what they do.
Hard cut to them drunk and cow tipping.
Yes. JD, well, there is a date rape in that scene.
Yes.
Which was upsetting.
Very uncomfortable.
And it's just happening in the background.
Oh, it goes on for like a couple minutes.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, I think this movie is super ahead of its time in terms of humor and stuff, but I think some moments are like really dated in that like the violence and stuff definitely wouldn't fly today, but stuff like that and kind of casual talk about sexual assault and stuff wouldn't fly.
So JD shows up and whisks her away.
He is
just standing in the moonlight, leaning on his motorcycle, just blowing smoke.
exhaling smoke that is like blue.
It's luminescent.
And he's like, come on, our love is God. Let's go get a slushie. Yes. One way to my heart is to say that. So they go. The next day at school, Kurt and Ram are telling people that, quote unquote, Kurt's telling people he and Ram had a little sword fight in your mouth last night. I know, right? So she's like thinking of ways to get back at them. She gets with JD and he's like, what about violence?
That newspaper editor who was like, I heard.
Yeah.
I wanted to punch him.
Really?
He just annoyed me so much.
He was annoying, but I think in that moment, he was I don't know. He was like, hey, FYI, people are saying this about you. It's fucked up. Like,
what I thought was in a tone of like, I heard people are saying.
I think he just, well, because that girl was making fun of her like 5 seconds previous. He's like, fuck off, Courtney. Like, you stop.
Well, he should have stood up to her better.
Oh, okay. He did say, we kind of did skip the really amazing eulogy section where they're all praying over Heather C's body.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he goes up there and he's like, Jesus, this sucks. Please don't let this happen to me. I don't think I could handle suicide. Quick and early acceptance to an Ivy League school, preferably Harvard. Please and thank you.
You have this so memorized.
Oh my god.
It's a real quote along for you.
It really is. I like Heather Dukes where she's like, I prayed for the death of Heather Chandler many times. I felt bad every time I did it, but now I know you heard me. Praise Jesus. Hallelujah. So Veronica's like, hey, Kurt and Ram are like telling everyone that they had sex with me. And JD's like, I wonder what we can do about those.
Did it once, we'll do it again.
Yeah, so what happens
so
next?
they
I don't want to talk the entire time. I know I could, but...
So they set up the two guys. She lures them out, like, meet me in the woods behind school at dawn.
Can we talk about the amazing, preparation?
Yes.
So, Christian Slater is in a truly butch lesbian realness outfit. Also, this whole time he's like wearing great like jeans and a wife beater and a flannel.
It is a real 90s lesbian in Seattle.
Love it so much. So they decide to frame them as secretly gay. So
there's a
homosexual artifacts.
There's like a gay porn magazine. There's who's the picture of?
Joan Crawford. There's makeup,
and then the piece de resistance is mineral water.
And she says the immortal line, hey, mineral water's come a long way. And he says, but this is Ohio. And if you don't have a brewski in your hand, you might as well be wearing a dress. Truly. So, but also the bullets are introduced.
And she's worried, like, are these real bullets? And he's like, oh no, they just put you to sleep.
Yeah, he was like, they're called Ich lüge bullets, which means I'm lying in German. No, because he asked her, did you take German? She's like, no, French. And he's like, all right. So my grandpa swapped these off to Nazis in World War II.
It's pretty clever.
And supposedly they break the skin and they just put you to sleep and they make you look dead. And she is a dumbass. So she says, all right. She's done. I love the character of Veronica because super early in the movie, she's like, I had an opportunity to go to high school early because I was incredibly smart. Like, I always tested really well. And she's like, and I didn't because they thought I wouldn't be able to make friends. So now all I do is social stuff. And I, like, don't use my brain at all. And I hate it. Like, so I like that she's shown as really, really smart in some ways. And then just, like, willfully disbelieving in other ways.
Yeah. So,
what happens in the clearing?
So... The guys show up. They strip down to the boxers.
I was hoping you could rip my clothes off me, sport.
And JD shows up, shoots one. Veronica shoots at the other one, misses.
Yeah, and he's like, off. What? really? Okay, I'll be right back. But she kind of like, she's like, it's okay, it's just a joke and all that. And then realizes
the other guy's dead.
Yeah.
So JD chases the guy back, needing some yakety sax music. It was a whole sequence.
I think, yeah. They said in the commentary that they had to both sell it as a light teen comedy and a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
So they would like show the chase through the woods scene to like the people who wanted a thriller, and they would show the like funnier scenes to people who wanted a comedy.
Well done.
So they had to like smush it together a little bit.
So JD chases him back, shoots him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Veronica shoots him.
Yeah, which. Girl, honey, don't do that. So,
and then the sound of the gunfire lures two of the most incompetent policemen. Just, I hated them.
Really?
I was upset looking at them.
Oh, they were so funny. Did you notice the recurring Hindenburg joke? Where they all kept going, oh, the humanity.
So the police... they show up at the scene.
They have to deduce, quote unquote, and I feel like I'm reclaiming a slur because I like am partially gay, but like I don't mean this in a terrible way. But they're like, oh my god, they were facts. Jesus H Christ,
and
what a waste.
The main point of evidence that they have for that,
mineral water. They're like, can't argue with this.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
So
it then goes to my favorite scene of the movie, which is them sitting before school in her car fighting.
Yes.
And two of the Heathers are watching from outside, and they go, young love.
And this is the cigarette scene.
Yeah.
Which I was uncomfortable.
Yes. That does happen, but not until after JD delivers the immortal line. All Kurt and Ram had to offer this school were date rapes and AIDS jokes. We did everyone a favor. It's
a good line.
True.
And a true observation.
So Veronica's like, I didn't know you lied to me. And he's like, you knew. Like, you definitely knew. You were just, you may not have said it, or, like, your feelings were too gross and icky to confront, but you knew and you wanted them dead. And she's like, no, I didn't. And so they have an argument, and she gets really upset, and she ends up putting the cigarette lighter into her palm. Mm-hmm. And she's screaming, and JD is like, and so he grabs her hand, lights his cigarette off her burn, and then lets it go, which is clearly, obviously, terrible abusive behavior, and terrible and awful.
And also, I think, impossible.
Yes, but also incredibly sexy.
It's wildly conflicting for you.
It definitely is. Good lord. And then a girl who is uncredited, she doesn't have a name, runs up to the two Heathers who are watching them outside the car and says, did you hear school's canceled because Kurt and Ram killed themselves in a repressed homosexual suicide pact? And they go, no way! So what happens next, Wyatt?
The second amazing funeral.
Oh, this funeral is truly peak humor.
They are being buried in suits and football helmets, and each one's clutching a football. And
the
Kurt's dad.
Oh my god.
Delivers my favorite line.
Best actor in the film, honestly.
My son was gay.
My son's a homosexual, and I love him.
I love my dead gay son.
I love my dead gay son.
Oh my god.
Truly hilarious. And,
I lost it at 5 something in the morning.
And Winona and Christian are just sitting there, and he's like, how would he react to a son with a limp wrist who is still alive and all that, And then Winona's
this girl just turns around and looks at them
with tears in her eyes.
Tears streaming, snot running out her
nose.
And
Winona's like, maybe that's not good. But in the commentary, they were like, could you believe we got Drew Barrymore for that? Like, it wasn't. It was It's really funny. Like, oh my god. So this is when things what is it? What's the real world? When things stop being fun, start getting real. Or whatever.
Yeah, this is where JD stops being likable.
The turn happens.
Mm-hmm.
And the turn happens specifically when they are at his... For me, this is when it happened. It's a very specific moment. So they're at his dad's house.
I thought his dad was cool in the first scene together.
I do like the thing that they do together where he calls his dad son and his dad calls him dad.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Hey, Dad, I almost forgot to introduce you to my girlfriend."
I thought it was good rapport, and then the second scene, Dad's like, "Haha,
yeah,
I'm evil."
Dad's a little upsetting. But they're on his couch watching news coverage of the suicides at school.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think you... we talked about it last time, where she was like, earlier on the first suicide, she was like, "What? Have you done this before?" Kind of jokingly. And then it's like, he doesn't answer. So she's kind of getting wise to the fact that he likes doing this, and it's like more of fun for him than it is for her, and she's not really comfortable doing that, which, like, obviously you shouldn't be. You're killing people. But he's like, they're playing our song. What did you think of the recurring teen pop song called Teenage Suicide, Don't Do It?
I hated it.
Okay. Teenage suicide, don't do it. So he shoots the TV. No, he shoots the radio.
Yes.
When it comes on. And she's like, "That's it, we're breaking." And he grabs her and forcibly kisses her. She tries to get away. He pulls her back. And this is when I'm like, all right.
The klaxons are going off.
Yes. So she gets away. They're broken up. JD teams up with Heather Duke.
Mm-hmm. They're scheming.
Is Shannon Doherty, who is a notorious bitch, like, as a person, as an actress. She's like super difficult to work with. She was on 90210 after this, so this was like one of her earlier roles. But how does Heather D and JD team up?
JD blackmails her because she used to be friends with
Martha Dunstock,
who tried to commit suicide.
Oh god, that's so sad.
Because all the popular kids are all mourned for their fake suicides, and then she attaches a note to herself and walks into traffic, and everyone laughs at her.
Yeah, she was like, she can't even do it right, because she survives.
And like, what's the comment that Heather makes?
All the uncool people are trying to imitate the cool people of the school. It's so heightened and like silly, but that was upsetting.
Subtlety is not this movie's game.
No, absolutely not. So then the petition happens, right?
Right, JD uses the blackmail to get a petition going.
And so he just asks Heather to like get as many signatures as possible. The petition is like the worst plot point ever, because you didn't need it like at all. Also, at the end, he reveals it by like ripping off a piece of paper that was glued on top of the paper.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense at all. So everyone signs this petition. Is that when the dream happens? The amazing dream?
The amazing dream, yeah.
I love that dream.
What?
It's so weird. So Veronica has a dream that she teams up with JD, and they go and slit Heather D's wrists. Well,
she tries to stop him.
She does. But he's like in control now and kind of forcing her to do all this stuff. And he goes like full Jason at this moment. like has a giant knife and he's like, ah! Like,
he is off the rails, no longer likable.
He's going wild.
He's gone Shining Jack Nicholson.
Yes, exactly. Oh my god. So, and then they go to Heather D's funeral, which is...
Everyone's wearing like...
whimsical themes?
X-ray X-ray or not
3D glasses.
3D glasses. The preacher has a Hawaiian shirt on.
They have like in the casket. There's Easter grass and like Easter eggs and stuff. And she ends up talking to Heather C, who was already dead, and she's like, "If I have to sing Kumbaya one more time, the afterlife is so boring." And then she wakes up. And because her mom's calling her to dinner. But JD is outside smoking a cigarette, loading a gun with his motorcycle. So Veronica does some quick thinking. Because she
I feel like we skipped.
What did we skip?
I'm not sure. But no, I don't think... Yeah, it doesn't go from the dream to her suicide. There's like another day at school where Heather tries to pressure her to sign the list. And JD tries to pressure her back.
That does happen, I think, and he threatens her.
Yeah.
So that's when she knows that he's going to try and kill her.
She goes home, finds that JD had been to the house and left a note.
Yes. Okay, good for you. Yes.
And then she says something like...
He tells her parents that they need to be careful because she might try to kill herself. Which means, like, I'm going to stage your suicide. Yeah. Basically.
Oh, we missed the great line.
Yes, I want you to deliver it.
Going back where there's a scene where Veronica walks in, our parents watching the coverage of the suicides. And
hey, look, there's Heather.
What? Why aren't you on TV, Veronica? And Veronica goes on a rant about like how adults treat teens.
See, I feel like that's the thesis of the movie, but it doesn't make sense.
It's in caps lock, yeah.
She's like, "You patronize us like bunny rabbits."
And the dad's like, "I don't patronize rabbits."
They're just so wildly inept.
Okay, so she comes home and realizes JD's been to the house. And
he leaves her. She knows he's going to kill her because he leaves her the doll in the shirt that says Big Fun, which is the band.
And the note that says... like something like I can do handwriting too, or something like that.
So she knows he's gonna try and kill her.
So she says like to the camera, "Oh yeah, well we'll see how you handle a suicide that you haven't planned." Yes.
So I think it is right after the dream though.
No.
It is.
No.
It is. I've seen it a million times, dude.
Okay. Dubious.
Anyway, but he climbs up into her window and finds her hanging. And on the commentary, the writer goes, it's like silent. And he goes, "Does anyone believe she's dead?" No. You do not believe she's dead. But she is hanging and she is like kind of playing dead. And JD comes in and he's like, "God damn it, Veronica. I was gonna try and get you back. I mean, I came up here to kill you. But not before I was gonna try to get you back with my amazing petition. And we could have roasted marshmallows together on the burning school." He's still so charming and funny, though.
He is charming.
And so, yeah.
So, Veronica's mom starts to come in the room.
JD leaves.
He hears it, and she walks in, gasps at her hanging daughter, and Veronica looks up and...
He's like, "Take a chill pill, Mom," which is like awful. Don't do that to your mom.
No.
So the next day is the big showdown. So JD kind of reveals his plan
He's going to blow
in the way
school.
that many villains do.
A monologue. Caught him monologuing.
So he had all these people sign this petition, and it secretly says, "We of Westerberg will die today." And like so it's supposed to be like a political statement. So she knows that he's going to bring a bomb to school. This would not fly in 2018.
No.
Okay? No. I get this movie is going to be 30 years old this year.
Whoa.
Whew. Jesus Christ.
Hey.
But
Oh, that's right. It came out my birth year.
So is Wyatt.
The big 3-0.
Yep. So we see JD in truly his best outfit of the movie. It's like a nice graphic shirt, some black jeans, his long ass trench coat. He really like was a school shooter trendsetter. So she kind of sneaks into school. And she like doesn't let him know that she's there. So she just kind of deduces that he's gonna use the bombs that his dad uses to destroy buildings. His dad also kind of killed his mom.
Did he know his mom was in there?
I think so. It's kind of shady, but
Yeah.
she committed suicide by like going into one of the buildings the dad was gonna destroy. So Veronica's like, okay, he's gonna set up some dynamite here and a big one in the basement.
Yeah.
So she asks this kid, and she's like, "What's under the auditorium?" And he's like, "The boiler room." With a really great delivery.
Both movies that we are going to talk about have boiler rooms beneath the schools.
I've never had I don't know if we have a boiler room in my schools. Like, also, like you pointed out, the Nightmare on Elm Street series has very big into boiler rooms under schools.
Yes.
So Veronica goes down to the boiler room, and JD's there, and she like has a gun, and she's like, "Stop right there!" And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Put down the bomb." And he's like, "I already put it down." And she's like, "I knew that." Yeah. And she's like trying to be so cool and like, like avenging angel or whatever. He beats the shit out of her. It's really hard to watch. I don't like it at all. He knees her in the face. So that's... but she does end up... they have a huge struggle in the boiler room. Culminating... Truly amazing. She has the gun. She's like, "Turn off the bomb. Like, tell me how to fix it. Whatever. Like, tell me how to stop it." And he does this truly amazing thing where he goes, "Fuck you," puts up his middle finger. She shoots off his middle finger.
Lost it at that.
And that, like, gushing blood all down his hand. It's really, truly...
The middle finger is an important vein.
Okay.
Didn't you know?
No.
It's just guys.
I couldn't survive without it. I'd be rendered mute.
You geysers if you lose your middle finger.
Okay. I love it because she's such a bad shot, and then she shoots off his middle finger like a marksman. It's truly amazing. So she shoots him
again, and he stabs the bomb, and it stops it.
Don't make sense. It don't make sense at all.
It's almost as if the inherent logic of
Heather's is flawed. So she stops him. She is beat to hell. She is so gross and sweaty and bloody. She goes out.
She's a real Ripley.
Yes. So she kind of saves everyone in the auditorium's fine because she stopped him from blowing it up. She goes out into the front where the steps are. He's not dead.
He comes stomping out, trench coat covered in blood. Beat to hell too.
Love it.
And now he has the bomb strapped to himself, and he's going to blow himself up.
He has a suicide bomb vest.
He's like, "Well, you beat me up, so I guess I'm just going to take myself out."
Yeah, he's like, "I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, if I couldn't do this, what's the point?" And he's like, "Tell them I blew up the schools. Tell them I blew up all the schools," which I don't really get.
No.
And he does it. Oh, he does this amazing monologue, and he's like, "The only place the different social groups can really get along is in heaven, and it's because nobody loved me."
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's not
well
well
written.
written.
In the end, he's like, "I'm going to blow myself up."
All right.
Starts smoking cigarette.
She pulls out a cigarette. Earlier in the movie, he lit a cigarette off her hand when she was in terrible pain. This time, she's like, she shows him the cigarette. She puts it in unlit, and she lights her cigarette off his suicide bomb explosion.
Yep.
Poetic cinema.
She looks amazing after the bomb goes off.
There's like a death crow in the background, like, "Ah, ah." It's like amazing. The end.
Yep, and
so that's Heather's.
So the bomb goes off, and she goes and confronts Heather.
Oh yeah! Oh my god! How could I forget? Come on! Wow, Veronica, you look like hell.
And Veronica takes Heather's bow tie.
She goes, "I just got back."
That's right. Great line. There's a new sheriff in town.
Heather, my love. And then she kisses her on the cheek. Oh, that was a lot to deal with. She goes up to Martha Dunstock, who is in a wheelchair, like a wheelchair, mechanical wheelchair.
Yeah,
she's like,
scooter.
"Hey, my day for prom just fell through. You want to rent some new releases, pop some popcorn?" She goes,
"So sweet."
I like that.
I did get teary at that.
Really?
I did.
It could have been sleep deprivation.
No. I cry at like kindness in movies.
Oh my god!
Like unexpected moments of kindness really get me.
So that's Heather's. What are your thoughts?
Great.
THOTS.
Great acting from the leads. Yes. Tonally inconsistent. Not what I was expecting. I was expecting something more like Clueless or 10 Things I Hate About You. It was not that.
It wasn't. It's so much darker. It's like pitch black.
Yes.
Comedy-wise.
I thought the whole movie would be about trying to end the first Heather.
Whoa. Okay. She's just super hard to kill.
Something like that. Like, I thought it would just build toward, like, killing her.
Yeah. No, that happens in the first 20 minutes.
Yep. I'm very conflicted about it.
Okay.
I don't really...
Well, you're not a fan of, like, things that, like, use suicide as a subject matter that don't handle it well, right? You've talked about that before.
Yeah. Yeah, I was uncomfortable with, like, how it did suicide. And then also, like, humor that's kind of detached from reality. Yeah. I'm never really a fan of.
I think it's so heightened that it's in, like, a weird kind of cartoony alternate universe where everyone, like, wears color-coded outfits and stuff like that. And
yeah, that always makes it hard for me to enjoy that sort of humor.
Okay.
But the leads pulled me through.
They're truly everything, aren't they? Oh my god.
They are a delight.
So, this movie obviously is super important to me and I love it so much. But I think there are a lot of teen girl high school movies.
Yes.
Right? Like Pretty in Pink, all that. They went out of, their goal was to make an anti-John Hughes movie.
They did it.
And in its weirdly, extremely hyper, realistic, clowny way, I think it's more realistic than John Hughes movies.
In some sense.
Just in terms of, like, how people act, how sex is treated, how, like,
I don't know. I feel like a lot of John Hughes movies pack a punch.
I know. Well, there was a specific thing that I remember from the commentary where in all of the John Hughes movies, they're like, I hate my parents. My parents are my worst enemies. Like, I just, like Breakfast Club or something. They're all like, my parents don't understand me. I hate them. I have such an issue with them. And when Veronica asked JD, do you like your dad? He goes, I haven't really given the subject much thought. Which is, I think, more realistic. I mean, at least to me.
That's not realistic. Every kid has an opinion of their parents.
I don't know if I've ever met a kid like in the Breakfast Club where they just, like, rail and go off on their parents for, like, ruining their life. I don't know. I think in that way it's more realistic to me. Maybe not to you.
No.
Whatever. I think there was another thing said that it was like, with JD, they wanted to show that to be actually the coolest teen guy stereotype, you have to be a psychopath.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting because
I liked that, even though I wish he didn't become an abuser because I liked his character so much.
Yeah, me too.
But when he was an abuser, abuse was never made to look good.
No. Absolutely. And it was clear that he was in the wrong and she was in the right. And even though she was, guilty of a lot of terrible things, it was from manipulation and him kind of like pressuring her to do stuff like that. I think, it's a weirdly realistic relationship dynamic, one that has played out in my life. Like, I'm like, ooh, cool kind of bad boy who, like, challenges me and, like, all that. And that ended up being a terrible relationship that was very exploitative. And, like, one time, shortly after that relationship, I was watching Heathers with the guy who had known me and my ex-boyfriend. And he was like, oh, a smart-mouthed brunette who has an asshole boyfriend. I wonder why you like this movie.
It's almost as if the bad boys in movies aren't really a thing in real life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this movie, even though it is glamorized, like he's, charismatic and sexy and cool and all that, it's like that person is never healthy and never good for you. I was
expecting him to be like Heath Ledger in 10 Things.
Oh, I wish. Oh my. Heath Ledger in 10 Things is like the ideal bad boy, where it's like all rumor and he's actually just really chill and nice. Yeah. So, yes, I love this movie. There were two alternate endings that
What?
they didn't film it, but the original ending of the script was deemed too dark.
Oh, okay.
So,
They blow up the school together?
everyone dies.
Yeah.
And it's a prom scene in heaven. And in the punch bowl is the blue Drano. And I would kill to see that.
Oh my God.
That would have been amazing. And then the second one, which I really don't like, is everything's the same except when Veronica goes up to Martha. She goes, "Hey, do you want to go to prom together?" or whatever. Martha pulls out a gun, puts it in Veronica's mouth, pulls the trigger, and says, "Fuck you, Heather." Which Wyatt would have been crying for a different reason. Because it's really upsetting.
I would have gone to bed in a very different headspace.
Yeah. But I really like this ending because she wins.
It is a much needed moment of kindness.
Yeah.
Like that moment, and when Veronica tries to reconnect with her old friend, with
Betty and Veronica, and her last Veronica Sawyer and Betty Finn. Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer.
Okay.
So they were named after like classic friendships.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the moments of kindness made me like the movie a little bit more.
Yeah. Betty Finn was played by Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen's sister.
Whoa.
I know.
I thought she looked familiar.
But she's so like... Veronica's like, "Hey, do you want to come over and hang out?" And she's like, "Really? You want to hang out with me?" And she's like, "Of course, like, you're nice." And they're talking about boys and all that. And she's like, "Oh, I'd just be happy if someone asked me on a date. You and JD are so happy." And she's like, yeah, you know.
He's a killer.
It's just, you know, I'm a sucker for like romance plus crime spree.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is like Christian Slater's genre because he went on to do True Romance, which is truly another like iconic movie. But it's just so funny and so smart, but it doesn't land everything.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely not.
Yes.
But
it goes big and
takes a lot of risks.
Not all of them great.
Mm-hmm. But it's like, it's a nice balance of like darkness, but also like kind of whimsy to me. Like with the dream sequence, they're so silly and like over the top. It kind of takes some of the like depressing moments and makes them have less bite to me, because I'm like, oh, this isn't real life. This is like
at the end of the day, I don't know if I would recommend it.
It's not a movie for everyone.
Nope.
Did you like it though?
I liked most of it. I'll say that.
Okay. I do. Veronica, one of best characters. I love her so much.
The ending, like after the bomb goes off, like that was a very satisfying ending.
She's so capable and like smart, but in a way where like you can be smart like her and still get like trapped into something like that with someone who's really manipulative.
Oh yeah, smart people end up in like abusive cults and relationships all the time.
Yes, it's true. But yeah, that's Heather's. Anything else to say? Any stray observations?
Nope.
Okay.
Moving right along.
All right. Our second.
The movie the movie I liked more of, like double billing.
This Grosse Point Blank, starring John Cusack and Minnie Driver, pre Good Will Hunting. So she's like fresh off the boat from like Ireland or whatever. But this movie I think is probably one of the most underrated movies.
It's a real hidden gem.
Like no one talks about it. It's never on any lists. But it's really like, it's one of my favorite romantic comedies. It's one of my favorite comedies, straight, like a dark comedy, crime movie. Like, oh, it's so good. I
am a sucker for missed high school romance connections.
Me too. I'm
like, even though like high school couples in real life.
Oh yeah, no.
Don't get married fresh out of high school. Don't
get married until you're 30.
Yeah.
Like make sure you make the right decision. That means you need to like settle on someone right now.
Yep.
Like the deadline's coming.
Well, good thing I have a runner. I have a pick.
A
so
dark
far.
Horse.
Okay. A real dark horse.
But yeah, I'm that bitch who like, I love Thanksgiving movies because I love stories of like adult children going home to their hometown and kind of like reconnecting with their past in a way, and like you can never really go home again kind of stuff. But this is that perfect movie. I think I would never in a million years go to my high school reunion, but I think that dynamic is so interesting because it's like this movie is like nostalgia the movie, but not in a like gross syrupy way.
Yeah.
It's more like, you know, that wasn't that bad. You know, the person I loved then, I might still love now. It's very...
But also, like, high school. Not that big of a deal.
No, absolutely not. And it's funny because, like, there are people in the movie who are so hardcore, like, into high school reunion. It's just, like, clearly that was, like, their glory days and everything. But, yeah, it's just such a... Weirdly gentle is the word that's coming into my mind. Of, like, a gentle, like, nostalgia for high school. And, like... before bad stuff happened.
There's a surprisingly sad undercurrent to the movie.
Oh my god. Oh, good lord.
So, the plot is John Cusack is
a hitman.
Martin
Blank.
He's having some trouble in the workplace.
He's having maybe a crisis of conscience.
Yeah.
At this point.
Not so much a crisis of conscience, more just no longer is satisfied in his work.
Yes. So he's kind of having some difficulties. He's fucking up some jobs. He's like not killing people right and getting in trouble with his employers. And it's not really his fault, but it's just kind of like pressuring on him. And you
could say he's under pressure.
Pressure. That's my impression of David Bowie.
Need some work.
Shut up.
You do a good Daniel Day-Lewis.
Okay.
Not so much
I take
Bowie.
risks on this podcast. But his not really co-worker, like another hitman is trying to form a union.
Dan Aykroyd.
And that hitman is Dan Aykroyd. Yeah. Giving a truly off-the-wall performance.
At one point, he starts shouting from the Book of Revelations.
I loved that. That was so good. Jesus. So... I know this isn't plot, but the script of this movie is one of the best I've ever seen.
It's great.
It's so dense, and even like throwaway lines and people talking over each other is so funny, and like the delivery is really on point most of the time.
It's snappy.
Yes.
It's snappy romantic tension, especially between him and Minnie.
Yes. And like the recurring lines or themes like applied to different situations kills me every time. So Joan Cusack is his secretary.
Yes.
They are not brother and sister in the movie, but they are in real life. And she's like, come back to Grosse Point, High Pointers, come on for your 10-year anniversary or reunion or whatever. And he's like, I don't want to go to that. She's like, you should go. And he's being very difficult. He takes some of his issues to his therapist, played by
Alan Arkin.
Yes.
A very unhappy therapist.
So funny. He's like, Martin, I can't help you anymore. And he's like, why not? And he's like, you told me what you do. And he's like, I did. And he's like, after 4 sessions, I'm scared of you. I don't want to talk to you. And he's like, I know where you live. And he's like, that's not nice. That's not designed to make me feel good. Like, that's a threat. So he's having a difficult time. And then some wacky assignments come in. He fails one.
He botches a job.
He has to make it up to people.
And he takes a job in the same town as the high school reunion.
And Joan Cusack is like, this is spooky. I'm getting a Black Cat Friday the 13th vibe from this. And he's like, fine. Okay. But when he's talking to his therapist, he's like, I've had the same dream of this woman for 6 years. Like, every night. And it's this girl that he was with in high school, Debbie, and he just can't get her out of his head, and he really regrets it. Yes. Come to find out, he stood her up on prom night and then disappeared.
For 10 years. Not a word.
Yeah. So he shows up in Grosse Point with a lot of people on his tail.
Yes. There's Hank Azaria.
Yes. And
as a beleaguered FBI agent.
Yes. And his partner, who was Mr. Trick on Buffy, and he was Mr. Who's the guy, like the social worker on Series of Unfortunate Events? What's his name?
I know who you're talking about.
He's in the new series.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a delight in that.
I love him.
That's coming back this spring.
I know.
I'm so excited.
But he's like a really great character actor from the 90s. And I'm like glad it's still getting work. But they're the FBI guys. So Grocer, Dan Aykroyd tipped them off, and he's like, got a patsy for you. Pin all this shit on Martin Blank. And so they're waiting for him to kill someone so they can arrest him or kill him or whatever.
And then there's also some, like, Eastern European assassin.
Interests include Native American art, ballroom dancing, and pornography.
He is multifaceted.
So turns out Martin accidentally killed a dog.
Which is, since obviously this is in the same universe as John Wick, we all know what happens when you kill a dog in the world of assassins.
I guess. So, I mean, clearly it was an accident. The dog was a retriever and went and grabbed some of the
When you throw a stick of dynamite, it's still a stick.
So that guy has been hired by those people to kill Martin for that. So he's it's a hitman convention at Grosse Point. Also Dan Aykroyd shows up to kind of like swoop in when Martin's out of the picture to take the money and do the hit. So can we recount the really amazing scene between Debbie and Martin at the radio station?
The soundtrack.
Honey.
Blister. When Blister in the Sun started playing, that's when I knew. That's when I knew that I was in for a treat.
Truly, like, can I ask you to, like, Google the soundtrack listing? Because I can remember a lot of them, but Debbie works at a radio station, and she is the greatest radio DJ of all time, and she's doing an all 80s weekend for the, like, 1986 10-year reunion. So she is spinning the Specials. She's spinning Echo and the Bunnymen, The Cure, The Clash, constantly. So much of The Clash. Violent Femmes. What else? The Eels.
The Eels. There's so much, like, ska punk.
It's great. It's so good. Also, this movie, I genuinely think this movie has the best soundtrack of all time. But it's mostly because it's comprised of bands that I love and listened to in high school. But,
we got Pixies. Like Under Pressure by David Bowie and Queen, of course. I can see it clearly now. That's the movie opens on that. Classic. There's a great scene of where Guns N' Roses cover of Live and Let Die starts blaring. Then and it's playing as Martin is walking, and as soon as he enters a store, it hard cuts into like the elevator version. Elevator jazz version.
We have the Pixies, we have Pete Townsend.
Let My Love Open the Door.
Oh god, perfect.
This is a
99 Left Balloons, Aha's Take on Me.
Take on Me is one of my favorite songs of all time. I lost it.
You gotta look up that soundtrack because it's
so good.
A thing of beauty. Also, they hired. So in high school, my favorite bands were The Clash and Bob Dylan, and a lot of these other bands I really enjoyed. But they hired Joe Strummer, lead singer of The Clash, to do the original music and original songs for this movie. So like when he goes to his dad's grave and pours out the bottle, it's like that's an original Joe Strummer song.
Okay.
And they got him like a few years before he died, maybe 10 years before he died.
Good timing.
Oh my god, I love it. So he sees Debbie. She's not that happy.
as one would be.
Yeah.
After pining away for a guy that dumped you.
For a decade?
That mysteriously disappeared a decade ago.
No explanation.
Just into the night.
So she is really shocked to see him. He comes in. They have amazing chemistry, right off the bat. She
is magnetically drawn to him at first, and they kiss, and then
they have like the messiest, like most like tense kiss, where like there's like 10 seconds of just silently standing next, like close to each other, and then she like shoves her face in his face.
Listen. If a movie gets me first invested in the romantic leads, and if there's some like up close like gazing at each
Oh,
other.
Honey. Oh, honey.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Well, and then she pulls away and she's like, wait, I hate you.
Yes. So she sits him down and makes him do a radio interview.
On air. And he's like, is this on air? And she's like, yes. Anyway.
Callers, tell me what should I do about the scumbag.
And the 2 FBI guys are sitting outside watching it all happen.
And they call in.
Yes, he's like, I have a question for Martin. And she's like, what should I do? And all these people call in and he's like, man, I don't know. I don't think you should take him back. I think you should really like make him feel it, dude.
Just make him jump through hoops. Make him walk on hot
and
coals.
He's just like dying and cannot handle it. He keeps pushing the mic away and she like keeps pushing it back to him. And she's like, what do you think, Martin? What do you think would be the right thing to do here? It's amazing.
So he leaves.
It's like very screwball comedy-esque.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So he leaves. He takes a bad trip down memory lane.
Well, he goes back to the car and then comes back to the radio station and they kind of like hash it out better. Mm-hmm. And she's like, okay, we can just talk, whatever.
Meet
just
you for drinks.
Let me do my job, you know? So yeah, then it gets really bittersweet.
He drives around
to the
town.
School, which I love that teacher.
Yeah.
That teacher's amazing.
She was fun. Meets an old teacher, recognizes him. They have a brief, like, awkward catch up.
But it's so cute, and she's like, you look like a mortician. He's like, you still have that Mary Tyler Moore thing going on.
Yep.
And she's like, that's enough. Thanks.
They're playing my song as the bell rings.
Everyone in this movie, it's heightened in terms of dialogue, but in a way that's realistic. It's just like everyone in this movie is equally smart.
It feels way more grounded than Heather's.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I like.
It's kind of like a lighter Gilmore Girls. It's not as like reference heavy and like
but the same amount of killing.
Yes, of course. Lorelai Gilmore is a monster.
I believe that.
But it's so snappy and like really just incredibly well written.
So he goes from school.
Well, he's like, I'm gonna go home. And she's like, are you? Okay.
Yeah.
And so, maybe you can't.
Maybe you can't go home.
Mm-hmm.
Pulls up to where his house used to be, and it is paved over paradise.
It is a convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
A gas station kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I love it because he's just so flabbergasted and he goes in and the kid behind the register is like 18 or something. Yeah. He's like, who are you?
Why are you here?
What are you doing?
How long have you been here?
What are you doing?
Where are your managers? How long have they been here?
Where do they live? Where do you live? And he's like, bro, I am not going to tell you this.
So then he goes and visits his mom, who...
Wyatt was bummed.
It was so sad.
He was super bummed.
His mom has lost her mind, no longer recognizes her son.
It's the same level of dialogue, but in like twisted to make it so sad.
It's so sad.
Because she's like, I talked to your father the other day, and he's like, I would imagine that would be very difficult.
I was like, yeah. Like, it reminded me kind of what my grandma went through near the end of her years.
Yeah. Where
she didn't recognize us.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I can't imagine that with my mom.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. And especially...
Not expecting this in a comedy about a hitman coming home.
No. Well, and especially if you left for 10 years and you hadn't seen your mom, and he's like, what happened to all the money? I sent you what happened to the house, and he wasn't there to fix things, which is really upsetting. But she says this amazing thing, because he's like, okay, Mom, go, it's time for your meds or whatever. And he, like, turns a corner and sees her again, and she goes, oh, you handsome devil, what's your name? And he's like... But that's one of those lines that like recurs, and it's really like powerful in different ways. Mm-hmm. So he goes to his dad's grave,
pours one out.
It's like such a brief, unceremonious scene, but I think it says so much because he just like has a bottle of whiskey, pops the cork, drops it, like pours the whole thing, and drops the bottle and walks away.
I like this movie. Like he's clearly a psychopath, but he's not like.
I don't know about that.
He's not played up to be like edgy.
Yeah, like, I don't know if he's a psychopath. We can argue about that.
Like he thinks he is.
I think
because he's like, I want to kill someone.
I think that's something he confronted by the end of the movie, but I think like through that we can talk about that. Okay.
So he goes around town. He has a few meetups with some old faces.
Jeremy Piven, which fuck him. Today 6 more women came out and said that he was inappropriate with him.
Oh no.
But this is 1996 and he's good in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So he drives them around, so they kind of reconnect. Everyone keeps asking him, where have you been for 10 years? And he jokingly says, I'm a professional killer.
Yeah.
And they all go, you get good dental with that? That's a growth business. Can I get in on that?
Yeah.
No one takes him seriously.
As anyone would when someone says, professional killer.
Yeah, but it's just so funny. And so he meets up with all these people who are like, this is something that happens to me because my parents still live in the town that I grew up in. It's extremely small, and so when I go home, it's like, it's kind of sad to see who's still there, because there's very few opportunities. This is different because this is an extremely affluent neighborhood north of Detroit, so like, and it's not the same as a super rundown rural poverty town, but it's still kind of like you feel the need to impress people and be like, oh yeah, I got out and I've done things, I've lived other places. And then,
well, I mean, this movie, hits home for people of like our age bracket now, because we're in the age where,
well, you are,
okay,
you're 6 years older than me.
Like, okay, but like we see people on Facebook that we grew up with.
Oh yeah,
and they're living their life. They get married, they have kids, they might get divorced.
I hate that so
or
much.
They might try to sell you their like facial cleaner.
That one of my favorite lines is early in the movie where he's like, why would I want to go to a high school reunion? I'll see all these people with lives and spouses and kids and dogs and houses and businesses, and I'll say, what? I killed the president of Paraguay with a fork. How are you? Like, I think it's a lot about, like, I've wasted my life. I could have this.
I could have it all.
Yeah, but, like...
My empire slime.
But for him, having it all is, like, the traditional route.
Yeah. And
he makes fun of those people, but he also is envious.
But there's also a poignant moment later with traditional route.
Yeah. So
anyway, he has drinks with Debbie. It gets interrupted by a drunk old friend. And
Marvin
he goes into the restroom, finally confronts the FBI agent.
Which is amazing, because he's like, hey,
oh, hey.
I'm going to be back at the hotel about half an hour. See you there.
And then that's when it's revealed that Dan Aykroyd has followed him and set him up.
Yes. Great. But everyone has such a, like, weird, like, extremely gallows sense of humor in this movie, which I love. So he kind of gets with Debbie, and she's like, you're still in the penalty box. I don't know.
They have a great scene together where he later goes over to her house.
Oh my god. The most, like, romantic, cute, like,
listen, I'm down.
Movie.
I'm down for, like, a good sex scene between, like, people I'm invested in. But
that's good to know.
I'm also down for, like, a sweet moment of, like, just goofing around.
Intimacy. Like, that's, like, a higher level of intimacy.
Right.
Because he goes over there and he's like, so I was thinking, I was in the neighborhood. Can you, like, do you want to go to the thing tomorrow? She's like, I don't know about that. And he's like, well, can I come in? Can I come out for all that? And all that. And they have really amazing, like, back and forth. She's like, only if you give me an airplane. He's like, all right. So puts his hat.
So he props her up on her feet and they have a conversation. And it's cute.
Yeah, they're laying on the bed and he, like, is holding her over him, and he's like, are you free? Do you feel free? And she's like, I'm free. I'm flying. It's incredibly cute.
It's such a cute moment.
And he's like, is this the same bed? It's a magic bed. This bed? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's cute, but it's also kind of hot, but it's not like so sexualized and gross.
It's also a great scene of, like, establishing history between the two characters.
That's something I'm really interested in, like, as someone who writes, but also as, like, a movie watcher, is, like, there's a level of intimacy that is just being comfortable with another person that is so, like, important to me in stories. Like, I don't care if you're having sex, I don't care if you're married or whatever, but, if you can, like, share food at a restaurant.
If you have rapport.
Yeah, or just like if you know someone's like favorite song, stuff like that. I love it.
So she agrees to go with him to the
reunion.
Oh, we skipped the convenience store shootout.
How could we?
How shame on us.
That was a very Wyeth scene because a kid was listening to Ace of Spades by Motorhead and playing Doom 2 and did not hear
the shootout. So he goes back to the convenience store where his home used to stand, and
because I guess that's home.
I guess
he just keeps going back.
They'll live there, and so the dog assassin comes in and they shoot up the place while the attendant is just jamming to some Lemmy. R.I.P.
And then the Eastern European dude is like puts a bomb in a microwave and blows up the whole place. And Martin is just he like grabs the guy and the guy's like, "What the fuck, man?"
Now I have to go find another job. Which job hunting is so stressful, so I get it.
Well, and Martin is like watching this place blow up and he's laying on the ground. He just like puts his head in his hand like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's a great moment.
So everyday
as
for
milk
him.
cartons rain down on him.
I love the recurring thing of he's always looking over his shoulder, and when she leaves the room, he takes her seat because her seat has
a better view.
Well, his back is to a wall.
Right.
He's so paranoid, and it's so
like
constant.
At the high school reunion, someone comes up like tries to like do one of those like, "Hey, buddy," like
he
fake punches.
Like, tackles him a little bit, and Martin
like throws him on the ground,
almost like flips him. He's like, "Hey, I'm sorry."
Which, to be fair, I hate people who like come at you like, "Hey."
You should do that. You should learn how to flip someone.
I'm going to start like breaking hands.
Yeah, do it. Just like amazing.
Yep, you're done now.
I love. He's such a good character because he's so self-deprecating and funny, but in a way that like he's so sad. He's so sad and like
broken.
Yeah, she calls him broken. He's like, shit. Okay,
nailed it.
But the scene where he's getting ready for the reunion and he's like late already because he's an asshole and he like doesn't realize that you should probably be early if you like stood up your girlfriend last time you talked. You
should have been 30 minutes early.
But he calls his therapist and he's like, I'm very anxious. I'm having a hard time with this, and he's kind of like giving himself a talk up in the mirror, and the therapist is like, say this is me breathing, and just breathe and like know that you're here and that you're breathing. My favorite little detail in this movie is he takes his gun out, he makes sure that it's loaded, and he cocks it, and he looks at it and goes, "This is me breathing." And it's just like, that moment like speaks so much for me, because I'm like, that's like the most natural thing he can do now. He does it like without even thinking.
That's true. So he picks her up.
He also says, "You handsome devil, what's your name?" when he's getting dressed up. Love it.
So Debbie calls him?
Yes. And someone else.
And
no, they didn't answer, but
they noticed a flyer for the reunion in his room.
So that was the Eastern European guy.
Yeah. So he picks her up. Everything's fine.
So cute.
He has a funny little scene with the dad.
Yeah, he's like, "You still exploiting the working class?" And he's like, "Of course. What else would I be doing?" Which, sucks, but whatever.
Old rich white man.
Foreshadowing.
Yes. So
they go to the reunion.
The playlist is stellar.
Lit. It is lit. They meet all these weirdos. There's
so they're having a good time. There's a scene where she goes off to reconnect with people, and he ends up with a baby, and it is the wettest, biggest-eyed baby ever.
It's an incredibly cute baby,
and he is holding it,
like staring into its soul.
The baby is like soul staring at him. All the while,
Under Pressure plays.
The bridge portion of Under Pressure is playing.
Love's such an old-fashioned.
And everyone just should clutch their chest.
Can I say, you're going to be mad at me about this. God. That was the one corny moment in this movie.
Well, I'm a sucker.
Okay, I'm just like, really? He's a hitman, so you're going to have him hold a baby, like, life. And like, you stare into its eyeballs while like a meaningful song is playing.
But that was an important moment because he realized like he was so scared of a normal life. And that, like, not necessarily, it wasn't showing that, like, oh, you should have kids. Like, that's the key to happiness. But, like, maybe some aspects of normality are that bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a little corny for me, but I mean, I get it. I like it. So him and Debbie, she sees him with a baby, and she's like, ring-a-ding-ding, let's do it! Kind of. And
so they have a moment in the balcony.
God, it's so beautiful.
All the while set to,
Let My Love Open the Door.
God, yeah.
Like the slow version.
Right.
God. And she's
I don't know if you've seen, Dan in real life.
You've talked about it before.
It's such a good movie, and there's a moment where, like, a heartbroken Steve Carell does a sad acoustic version of that song.
Oh, God.
And it kills me every time.
Okay, this kills the man. Okay. I love that balcony moment because she's like, I shouldn't have called you broken.
You're not broken.
You're a little sprained.
Mild sprained, yeah.
And
they proceed to go.
Well, no, she's like, I'm glad you're back. And he's like, I'm sorry I fucked up your life. She's like, it's not over yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then she goes, do you have a wife in Arkansas?
No.
He says, no. And she says, would you like to dance? He says, sure.
So they dance. And then they proceed to the nurse's office.
Love it! Oh my God! And they're
what goes down? Who goes down there?
Ew. And they're making out, and she's like, "Wait, hold on." And he's like, "Too fast?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she goes, "I think there's something missing." And she slaps him
so hard.
And he's like, "Ugh." And then she's like, "All right, let's go ahead." Yeah. And so they make some sweet love. It's great.
They separate.
Unfortunately,
Abe from The Walking Dead is in this. Is that his name? Abraham, whatever?
Yes, it is.
He's drunk and he stumbles into Martin and reads him a poem.
It's beautiful because he's like, I'm gonna kick your ass, man. He's like, there is no us. We do not exist. There is not a thing between us. And he's like, can I show you my words? He's like, yeah, man. Like, that's your problem. You just need to express yourself. He's truly like... For a hitman, toxic masculinity, he's past it. He's like, express yourself, it's fine, baby. Really sweet. What happens next? He kills a guy with a pen.
Yes, as he's investigating his old locker, the Eastern Europeaner attacks him. Mm-hmm. They duke it out.
Kills him with a pen.
Some John Wick moves, stabs him in the jugular with a pin.
Debbie comes around.
Discovers the body.
She
runs away crying,
happy.
As one does when you discover your boyfriend is literally a hitman.
Yeah, Jeremy Piven, ride or die.
Ride or die, Jeremy Piven. Who
helps
could have expected?
Take the body to the boiler room.
The obligatory high school boiler room, which has
a like crematory like furnace.
Yeah, they shove the body in there.
So he's given up. He's like, all right, fine, I'll just do this fucking hit because now Debbie is not gonna love me anymore. She comes to his, or I know like we need to wrap up, but she comes to his hotel room and it's a really great scene because I think like she could have been a sketch character. She could have been very 2D, right? But she comes to his room and she's like, why didn't you like learn that this is wrong? Like, what's wrong with you? Why do you think this is okay? And he's like, it's not me. I just do it for money. That sounds bad, I know. But, like, it's not like I'm killing people indiscriminately. I'm not, like, riot police who are just, like, you know, killing people for no reason.
Yeah, he tries to justify it.
And he's like, Debbie, come back when she tries to leave. And she goes, you don't get it. You don't get to have me. Which is such a good line.
That's a good line.
He's like, I guess I don't.
And so
he opens up the hit. And he's like, dumb fucking luck.
Because it's Debbie's dad.
So a really amazing scene occurs where Grocer, Dan Aykroyd.
Which, okay, it was nighttime at the high school, like late evening, and it's suddenly morning.
He prepared all night to, like, save that guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean.
So it shows the dad jogging, and Dan Aykroyd is getting ready for the hit. And
John Cusack, Tokyo drifts.
And swoops in, picks up the dad, and speeds to the house.
Oh my god. And he while he is battling Dan Aykroyd in, like, the biggest shootout ever, he's giving truly, like, audition-worthy monologue.
Yes.
He's like,
he's explaining all his flaws.
He was
he's
like, I was sitting there, I was 18 in a rented tux, and I knew in that moment I wanted to kill somebody. So I thought, since I love you so much, I should probably leave.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about it, and he's like, I was in the Gulf of Mexico last year, I was doing something, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so
Gulf? What?
Yeah.
Mexico?
I think so.
No, I think it was the Gulf War.
Oh, okay.
Because the oil fires.
Oh, yeah. So he's like, I was at a place I was doing something, which is kind of hilarious. He's like, I look out over the ocean, and it's on fire. And I thought, maybe this is beautiful. Maybe something means something. God, Yahweh, a higher power, what have you. Maybe
All the
there's
while,
meaning to life.
A hot fuzz,
bang.
hot fuzz level shootout is going on. Bang!
Yes, it's bang. So good. She like hides in the bathroom and
with her dad, yeah.
And she's like, make this gun work. And he's like, you know, Debbie, this might not be the right time to say this. Click. Will you marry me?
Yes. So all the while, Dan Aykroyd is singing and quoting scripture.
She'll
and
be
just
coming around the mat. I'll be blowing your fucking head off when she comes.
So they get into their battle. They are shooting at each other from like 2 feet away. Mm-hmm. It is hilarious. They shoot the FBI agents.
My favorite line, he's like, just join my group. Just join my union. He's like, will there be meetings? He's like, of course. And he goes, no meetings. And then throws a TV at his head.
He smashes the TV onto Dan Aykroyd's head.
Which, as I said when we were watching it, is a true 1996 killing tool. That also happens in Scream. So just throw like a plugged-in TV at someone's face and they'll die.
Instant KO.
Yeah. So he goes back up. He's apologizing to Debbie, and he's like, you know, you should think about it. You should think about it. And the dad is like, you have my blessing. Yep. It's really great.
And the movie ends on them driving out of town together to Blister in the Sun.
Mm-hmm. Truly iconic.
It is a very sweet movie.
I love this movie so much. The action is perfectly balanced with the comedy, the darkness, and like the pathos is perfectly balanced. Like, it's really just a super well done movie. So well written.
This movie reminded me a lot of another movie that no one talks about that I love, Lucky Number 11.
Okay.
It is so much like this movie.
Okay.
It is Josh Hartnett as a hitman who is constantly bloody and quipping.
Bloody and quipping, that's my sexuality.
Josh Hartnett and Lucy Liu have the best chemistry.
All right.
Jesus.
It sounds like I would love it.
Well, we'll watch that someday soon.
Okay.
It's so good.
This episode was really like catering to my my type, which is bloody, sexy, quippy, sarcastic.
Oh, it doubled
with a
down
gun
so hard on your kink.
God, John Cusack. This is peak John Cusack.
Peak
1996. Cusack. Peak Cusack. He just gets cuter as the movie goes on. It's great. So you liked it. Good.
I love this one. This is great. Killer soundtrack, killer characters.
Yeah. Ooh. It's truly, last spring I was very stressed out about finals, and I watched this maybe like 4 times in 1 month. I was really going hard on it.
It's a good relaxer.
I loved it. Okay, Wyeth has something to go to. Do you have a personal pick really quick?
Yes. I'm watching, have I talked about Gravity Falls?
No, I like Gravity Falls.
Gravity Falls is a delight.
It's very sweet.
It was a Disney cartoon. I love me some hand drawn style animation.
Yes.
It's like a sweet little mashup of Twin Peaks and X-Files.
Yeah, for babies.
Yeah. I'm still working way through the first season, but it's getting exponentially better with each episode.
There's only 3 seasons, I think, and it's like a really like good like contained plot.
Yeah, there's
Bill Cipher.
Yeah, they're building up to something, and I can tell, and I like that. God, Gideon is
the worst.
I won't put him in a catapult.
What? A catapult? I thought you said a cat pole, and I'm like, what? The fuck is that, dude?
I don't even know.
All right, awesome.
All right, well, we love you all as always.
I'm gonna give my personal pick, but you can leave. How's that?
I won't hear your personal pick.
Okay.
Hurry.
I'm sorry.
Hurry up.
I'm sorry.
Time is money. Money is pizza. Pizza's power.
Okay. My personal pick is Slumber Party Massacre 2.
Oh my god.
Because I'm writing my thesis. This is very scary. I'm having to talk really fast. I'm writing my... What?
We should just continue that because I want to hear all your thoughts about it next week.
Okay.
Because you have dominated Tumblr with gift sets.
I have. So you want me to stop talking and save it?
I want you to have the proper amount of time to get into it.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Next week, Slumber.
I guess I don't have a personal pick because Wyeth cut me off at the knees, but
Well,
I will
nope.
go off
No,
next
no.
week.
You can have it for 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, okay. All right. Slumber Party Massacre 2. It is a sequel to the first one. I'm writing my thesis over these 3 movies, so I got them all in the mail. The second one is the entire movie is a dream. You do not know what's real and what's not. It's crazy. It's like they looked into my head and asked, like, what does Lynn like? And they were like, oh, an all-girl pop punk band with neon guitars in 1987. Ooh. And they all go to, like, condo, the parents' condo, and there's a rockabilly, demonic, supernatural.
That's a real check for you.
All in black leather and silver, like,
that
metal.
That guitar is wild.
He has a guitar with a drill at the end. It's an electric drill. He stabs people. He sings he looks like the lost member of the Stray Cats. There's some amazing special effects. A girl is like, I think I'm getting a zit, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger until it's half of her face, and then it explodes. It's terrible, but it's truly one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm getting really loud now because I'm getting very
That's a good way to end.
So I'm trying to talk really fast.
Love you guys.
Love you. We'll talk about it later. Bye.
He behaved like a man demented, obsessed, utterly lost.